Well, good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder, and this is BRN AM for Tuesday, June 30th, 2020. And our top stories today, using TikTok to learn personal finance and things you need to know if you're going to buy a robot vacuum. Well, joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is Daniel Klein. He's a senior technology and consumer products reporter with the Motley Fool. Dan, thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to see you and always appreciate your insight into technology. Dan, I got a new one for you because I read a recent report that a lot of people are getting financial advice through the application known as TikTok, which I thought, Dan, was used for dance moves and other 1-minute things. So what can you tell us about this?
So, Jeff, this will be the shortest segment we've ever done. Do not do this. This is a terrible idea. But here's the other thing. I spend my whole day in the stock market world. I host multiple hours of shows on Motley Fool Live where we talk about stocks, where we give advice and our opinions. Don't take stock advice from me. And I am a stock analyst, at least some of the time. Take advice from real pros. And I'm not hawking our service over any others. There's lots of great services out there. But if you join a Motley Fool service, and they're not, some of the entry-level ones are $100, so it's not a giant barrier to entry. There are teams of people analyzing stocks, and they're buy and hold investors. They're not saying, and we're having this problem. It's infesting our unofficial Facebook group that we try to moderate. What's this stock going to do today? I don't care what a stock's going to do today. I care what it's going to do 10 years from now. We really try hard. You don't take stock advice from some random person on TikTok. Don't take stock advice from Jim Cramer. Take stock advice from people who have your best interests at heart. And look, Jeff, you spend a lot of your day sifting through financial news, trying to find things that are credible. There are a lot of not credible voices out there. I wrote a piece that I think is running now, might not run till later, basically explaining the risk of what happens when you're buying stock in JCPenney, a company that's bankrupt, that's being talked up by some of these TikTokers and day traders and other people. When you get that advice, the person who's going to profit from this isn't you. Now, if you really like a stock, you're really excited about Teladoc because you just had an appointment. It's fine to go out and take the temperature of the room, see if people like it, see if there's other investors who are saying, yeah, I'm going to hold this for 10 years, or someone like me who says, hey, be prepared. After the pandemic, this is going to take a long time to get back to growth. They pulled forward a lot of growth. Doesn't mean I wouldn't buy it. I probably would buy it, but I would just tell you that there might be 5 rocky years where they're not having big numbers of growth. That's the difference between being an analyst and being a person with an opinion or a person with nefarious motives. Look, there's a day trading movement out there. Day trading is roulette. We've had this analogy before on the show. You walk into a casino, you put your money on 8, and it comes up 8. You think this gambling thing is easy. I'm going to win money every time. And then you lose all the money you won, your house, your shirt, whatever else you can gamble with. That is how day trading ends. Take advice from real professionals and question that advice. Look, do I believe when you come to a company that employs dozens of analysts that has a strong, social message in terms of trying to do good? Do I feel really comfortable sending my friends and families to different Motley Fool services? Absolutely. But if you don't want to do that, here's what you can do. Just buy index funds. If you believe the stock market is going to go up, and historically over the long term it has gone up, buy an index fund that tracks the Dow. Buy an index fund that tracks the NASDAQ. We don't have to make this harder than it is. Everybody spends all on what's the next winner. Like I had to referee a fight this morning on one of our message boards.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a real fight.
No. People trying to pick the vaccine winner. Who's going to come up with the COVID-19 vaccine? The reality is the vaccine is going to be a low margin product. There are already deals in place to produce those vaccines. And those deals are with the idea that no government is going to allow this to be a 10,000% markup. This is going to be a slight markup. And even if you're accounting for 4 billion vaccines, and there might be 2 seasons of that vaccine, but more likely there's only going to be one. If you look at a company like Moderna, that's a rounding error in terms of their overall drug portfolio. Yeah, if some tiny startup gets it, they might go from 0 to $4 billion in sales in a year. But what's their product that they're going to sell year after year after year? That's how drug companies build value. There is no way to explain that to people who think they can harness the next lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
If I buy a stock and it goes up 100%, people always ask, well, do you sell it? Do you harvest some value? I look at it and say, okay, why did I believe in this stock? Is that item still true? Now, I might sell some shares if it's gone so huge, it's become a big percentage of my portfolio, and I'm not comfortable having that much money in one stock, because as we've seen with Wirecard or Luckin Coffee or some of these others, sometimes numbers aren't real and things can happen. So you might not want a company to go so big it becomes 30, 40% of your portfolio. You might want to trim. But if you believe in a company and it's going up, stay with that company. Get dance advice on TikTok. Get fashion advice. Do not get stock market advice. And don't take stock market advice from anyone except people who have your best interests at heart. And that is not always your financial advisor. Be careful of that. If you're working someplace where they get commissions on trades or other fees for having you move money around, make sure you work with the right people and the right sources and get a second opinion.
Well, I think the macro, Dan, really is know the source, right? And do your research. I think you alluded to this earlier on in the segment. When you're looking at a news site like Motley or others, there is a huge editorial presence that vets what people are saying. It's not like you just spout off at the mouth and just say, do this, this, and this, right? You have an editor. And so it becomes really... Go ahead, Dan.
We do. And I'll also point out we are the Motley Fool. We are allowed to have differing opinions. So we get that question a lot. Hey, Dan, you're not a fan of DraftKings. DraftKings is a recommendation. I have no idea if DraftKings is a recommendation. It probably isn't, but let's pretend it is. Or David Gardner likes DraftKings. How dare you not like it? I don't think David likes DraftKings, but again, that's just an example of a stock. I'll give a better one. I don't like Tesla. I think Tesla's a con game. A lot of fools love Tesla, believe in the product. We're allowed to disagree. So if you read a Motley Fool article by me that says, geesh, Tesla just came in last on the JD Power Quality Index. It's a really expensive product. That's not right for this time. It's an overvalued company. I believe it's going to go to zero. You might read that and go, oh my God, the Motley Fool says it's going to go to zero. Recognize that I am but one voice at the Motley Fool. And you could probably find 10 voices to every one that I'm negative Tesla. There's probably 10 that are positive. I'm also not an official recommendation. So if you join one of our services, that service will put out recommendations. They will list their past recommendations. They'll list what their best buys now are. That has more weight because that's done by a team of analysts. Those are debated. Those are talked about. But even on that, and I mentioned Luckin Coffee before, Luckin Coffee was in some of our services a recommendation. A lot of people believed in the business model. One of my analyst friends, who I appear on air with a lot, was very negative on it for all the reasons I was very negative on it. Perhaps I rubbed off on her a little bit. She was outvoted. We recommended that stock. And sadly, she proved to be right. Not for the reasons we thought we would be right, but because the company was committing financial fraud and lying about its sales. No way to see that coming. I don't fault that team. I buy and understand their argument for why the company was going to work. I just didn't agree with it. You don't have to be right every time. So we have a product called Rule Breaker Investing. It's David Gardner's, and there's a free side of it. There's a podcast. So you're welcome to hear David's strategy for free. And Rule Breakers Investing takes swings at riskier companies. And you can strike out 8 out of 10 times if those other two are 10 timers, 10 multi-baggers, we would call them, stocks that go up more than 100% more than one time. That's one method of investing where, hey, I'm going to buy a bunch of riskier early stage tech stocks or whatever it is, and I believe in all of them, but I recognize that some could fail. Or you could do more like I do. I buy companies that are fundamentally sound companies. I own Starbucks. I own Disney. I own Costco. These are not companies that are going to light the world on fire. I liken Costco as an elephant slowly walking up a hill. It's eventually going to get up the hill, but you're not going to wake up and find that Costco shares have doubled the way you might find with some like emerging tech stock. there's lots of different strategies, and that's something you should really learn. How comfortable with risk are you? I'm 46 years old. I'm not that comfortable with a lot of my portfolio being at risk. I might put 5% into risky things. If I ever stopped talking about them on air, I'd probably buy a little cruise line stock because I'm a fan of the industry and believe it will, a decade from now, be in good financial health, barring another pandemic. But that said, that's going to be a tiny percentage, and none of that is going to come from advice from, my barber or TikTok or classmates.com or, whatever other service it happens to be.
Yeah. Well, I think the takeaway here is be very wary of your sources and make sure that there is information to back it up. Dan, I want to go to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about buying that robot vacuum you always wanted. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
The windows on our homes, they protect us and the ones we love, but they do much more. At Renewal by Andersen, making your home more comfortable is at the center of every window we make. It's why we custom build our windows in America and install them in as little as 1 day. It's why we build our frames with exclusive Fibrex composite material that's 2 times stronger than vinyl. It's why our glass helps keep your home warmer in winter, cooler in summer, and quieter all year long. It's why we stand behind every window with a 20-year limited warranty. Why not help lower your energy costs while giving your home and family the best? Call 1-800-835-6525 to schedule a free in-home consultation. Buy one, get one at 40% off with this special offer. Plus, get special financing with no money down, no monthly payments, and no interest for 1 full year. Renewal by Andersen, the better way to a better window. Call 1-800-835-6525 now.
Welcome back. We're talking to Dan Klein, Senior Technology and Consumer Products Reporter with the Motley Fool. Dan, thanks so much for sticking around this morning.
Oh, thanks for keeping me.
Well, it's great to have you. So I want to shift gears. We're off of TikTok. Let's do something that I think is really a lot of people out there are considering, and that is whether or not I should buy a robot vacuum, robot mop for my home. What are some tips that we need to take away? First of all, are these good buys for people?
So I own not the top line Roomba, but a very nice Roomba. But it was a couple years old, so I got it for a good price. They can range from $300 to like $800 or $900.
Wow.
You really need to look at what your needs are. I have 2 cats. Before the pandemic, everyone was out of my house except me. I was home probably half the day in the office or Starbucks or wherever, half the day. And I traveled a lot. So really, I needed a and we have hardwood or laminate floors, so fake hardwood, and tile in our bathroom and tile in our kitchen. I needed a Roomba that would be good with pet hair and that would be good on those services. Ideally, I wanted one that self-empties because it could make multiple passes, recharge, and then that was too expensive. So basically, I got a Roomba, and I set it, and I wanted one that I could program, and I set it to run twice a day, and it does a pretty good job of keeping ahead of the pet hair. Mm-hmm. The problem is it's noisy. So now that the three of us are all home, or my wife and son are home at the moment, it's not that useful to run it. So we've been taking to traditional vacuuming. That said, you have to maintain it. You have to once a week go in and make sure you've cleaned all the spinny parts, because sometimes the hair gets trapped in it. Sometimes you have to cut it out. You have to clean the filter. Obviously, after each use, you have to empty it. If you run it 2 or 3 times in a row, you probably don't have to empty it each time. But the first time you have to. And you want the one that's best for your surface. The other thing is, I should have gotten the one where you could set up walls, like sort of digital walls, because mine every now and then gets stuck under a piece of furniture. And I will get the amusing message on my phone. My Roomba is called Dan Oomba. Dan Oomba is stuck on a cliff. And I'm thinking, are there a lot of people who have cliffs in their house? It doesn't feel like Roomba would ever be stuck on a cliff. But so then I have to text my wife, and she can rescue Roomba, or my son, or whoever happens to be home. And Roomba also eats anything you leave on the floor. So my son is notorious for leaving headphones or charging cables. The Roomba is a great lesson in not doing that. On the other hand, I have a plug-in easy chair, recliner. You have to really make sure that that plug is not there. My Mac, I leave on a surface outside because my wife has my office at the moment, and I have to make sure that that cable is off the ground. Now, fortunately, the Macs have sort of a quick-release plug, so if it grabbed that, it wouldn't pull my computer down. It would just unplug it from the charger. But you have to be really careful of that. It might eat a cat toy. It might eat a sock. It's not the smartest thing in the world, but in my opinion, it's an amazing product. And I'm speaking Roomba because Roomba's kind of the generic here. I would argue against the generics. I have tried a couple of others that, were cheaper on Amazon. That said, places like CNET do impartial reviews, and I'm sure there are models they recommend that aren't Roombas. Maybe there's a Shark, maybe there's another vacuum brand. My personal experience has been it's a you get what you pay for market, that you might want to find last year's highest rated product and buy it for a little less than this year's, but really consider what your needs are. Our next stop, by the way, is the mop. The problem with the mop is I've been struggling to make sure that it's 100%. I have waterproof laminate. I just want to make sure that it's 100% safe, that I'm not going to wear out my floor or do something damaging to it. And it's been a little difficult to research. So I don't like to clean. The fact that, you have cats, the cat hair can pile up like tumbleweeds.
Absolutely.
So this keeps ahead of that. And it's also a cat toy. The cats absolutely love it. They will follow it around. They will sometimes turn it on in the middle of the night because the button to turn it on is on the top of it and it's right near their cat tree. They know exactly how, if they're trying to get me to turn it on. So I actually sometimes have to leave it uncharged so they can't do that. So you're really getting 2 for the price of 1 if you have a pet there.
Well, it sounds like, and I think what's interesting is that it's used. These technologies are so evolved, Dan, and it's really interesting to see. We talked last week about ground penetrating radar and how that was able to be used to uncover old Roman technological sites, right? Archaeological sites, and I think it's just amazing how this technology is also being applied to help navigate your home, do a smart map, and figure things out. And I think this is the sign of more things to come, don't you?
It is. And some are smarter than others. My Roomba is pretty much a dumb Roomba. It doesn't do a great job hitting the whole floor. The other thing it can do is with cat hair, and you have to be noticeable of this, it can't get behind my couch. There's not enough room for the Roomba to get back there. So it does blow some of the cat hair into the corner. So you do still have to do some manual cleaning. Yeah. There's no, and it does a pretty good crisscross pattern where it hits everything. But sometimes, if I wanted to clean the floor in the bathroom, sometimes I'll just lock it in the bathroom for 20 minutes because it does a great job. But when it's going around the whole house, it might just do like one crisscross of the bathroom. And you walk in and be like, why is a third of the bathroom clean? Or the same is true of our laundry room, which is where our litter box is. I'll just lock it in that room and it'll get all like the litter dust and mess that, the cats leave behind. And it does a really excellent job. But if I just let it automatically do that, you'll see like tracks of it where it's like, oh, it got that part, but not that part. It blew that part into the corner. Definitely there are better models. It's something I will probably upgrade when we are no longer all stuck in the house.
Yeah, well, certainly interesting technology, interesting to see how it can be applied. And it looks like it's making some people's lives easier and also making it enjoyable for cats. Dan, always a pleasure talking with you. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you again very soon.
Thanks, Jeff. I'll see you next week.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest or someone you think we should talk to? Then drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the news in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, and more, check out today's edition of our newsletter, The Morning Pulse. So until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Attention! The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has officially authorized new benefits that Medicare Advantage plans may include. To get the benefits you deserve, you can call the Medicare Coverage Helpline.
Hi, I'm Joe Namath. If you're on Medicare, this is important information. I called the Medicare Coverage Helpline and they instantly looked up my coverage. In this one simple call, they offered to enroll me in a plan that includes rides to medical appointments, private home aides, doctors and nurses' visits by telephone, and even home-delivered meals. The plan also includes dental, vision, hearing, and prescription drug coverage, all at no additional cost.
Don't delay. Call to see if the new benefits are available in your area.
Call the number on your screen now. It's free.
Call 1-800-757-1451. That's 1-800-757-1451.